Hello again, everyone. New week, so that means new city and new teams. And this week, I'm going to be talking about Los Angeles sports teams. So I'm going to start the week off with the LA Kings of the NHL. They have a player on the Kings who is from my hometown, Woodstock, Ontario, Canada, the defenseman Muzzin. So I'm going to talk about him last because obviously it's nice to have talent from your own hometown, especially when Woodstock is just a little town of like 40,000 people. Some of you probably haven't even heard of it. For some geographical location, it's kind of, if you were to put a city between London, Ontario and Brantford, Ontario, the hometown of Wayne Gretzky, you'd end up with Woodstock. So that's kind of where Woodstock's at. So a little town, 40,000 people, has a guy who's recently won the Cup and is playing fantastic for the Kings. But I'm going to get to the defense last. I'm going to start off with some of the trades, talk about the draft, and some of the free agents they've signed. With the trades, obviously, I'm really only going to talk about one because it's the biggest one. Is the trade they made with Boston, where they brought in Lucic and gave up their 13th overall pick, as well as their goalie Jones and their defenseman Miller. Fantastic move, I think. Obviously, you can get great talent with that 13th pick. Boston's clearly in a rebuild. They went with 13th, 14th, and 15th pick, or the 12th, 13th, 14th. They had 3 back-to-back picks anyway in the first round. So clearly Boston is heading in a new direction. And the Kings were able to capitalize on that and bring in a guy like Lucic, who's a fantastic player. And it would have been interesting to see where they went with that 13th pick, whether they went defense, whether they went forwards. It would have been hard to decide, and I think that's kind of maybe why they made that trade, is they didn't really have a high team need where we need to go and find a first-line center, or we need to go and find a top 2 defenseman, or anything like that, because they have those players in the system and on the roster already, that whoever they did draft probably would have been playing this upcoming season in the OHL or in some minor league system, and wouldn't have been playing on the Kings roster. And I think that might have been the other reason they did that, is because usually, and I use that term loosely, you see first round picks have the ability and the skill set to potentially crack the NHL roster come day one. The Leafs' 4th pick with the guy they drafted from the Knights, and brain farting on his name, I apologize for that. He might not crack the roster. He might be playing next year with the Knights, kind of like Max Domi did. Why he's still playing in the OHL and wasn't playing on the Coyotes last year boggles my mind. Fantastic player there. But that could have been the situation with who they drafted, the Kings, with the 13th pick, as he would have been playing in the OHL or the AHL or some other league anyway, and wouldn't have been on the team. So you might as well find a guy who's established, has had success with the Bruins, and can make an impact on your team today. So I think that's a good trade for them. Not too many free agent signings with them. Obviously, when they lost their backup goalie, Jones, they needed to bring somebody in, so they signed Enroth, however you pronounce his name. I'm going to mess up pronunciations of names from time to time. I apologize for that in advance. But they brought him in. Obviously, you don't need necessarily an elite goaltender. You already have that in Jonathan Quick. He's a guy who can win you a cup and can take you deep into the playoffs. So they just need somebody who can come in for 15 or so games and have a solid 500 record. Even if in those 15 games he can just find a way to go 7-1 or something like that, then you'd be fine, because Quick's going to play fantastic for you. Again, barring injury and having a setback or something like that, he's going to have a solid season for you. One big guy they did lose to free agency, Williams, who last year, one of their forwards, he had an 18-goal, 23-assist season for that team, which is fantastic. Last year they had 5 guys with 18-plus goals, which is fantastic. That means you're getting good puck distribution. You don't have that 1 or 2 guys that has to carry the team. Your whole team, you got depth in your roster that can score in your second and third lines and even your fourth lines. So that's important. So they did lose him. He went and signed with the Capitals. So I think that's you lose him, but you signed Lucic, and you got Lucic in the trade. It's kind of like a one-off. Not a huge loss. Obviously, it would have been great to keep him around for sure. But you got Lucic in that trade, so it's not a huge loss for that at all. Looking at the draft, obviously they didn't have the first round pick, so their first overall pick was the 43rd overall pick, where they drafted Erik Cernak, who's a defenseman. Who I think that was going to be the route they would have went if they kept that 13th pick. I think they would have gone defense. I don't know why I'm thinking that, but I have a feeling, I'm just going with my gut, that they probably were going to take a defenseman if they kept that pick. And with that second round pick, that defenseman, obviously Cernak can turn into something, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the blue line for the Kings by the end of this decade anyway. Hopefully by the 2017-2018 season, he'll be able to be on the team. But we'll see what happens with their 74th overall pick. They drafted a center who I know I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, Alexander Durgachev. Maybe I did pronounce it right. If I did, awesome. If I didn't, again, I apologize. But that's who they took with the 74th pick, was the center there. And then they drafted a couple wingers with their 99th and 134th pick. Austin Wagner, a left winger with the 99th, and then Matt Schmaltz, a right winger with the 134th. So, again, teams who tend to draft, with multiple positions in it. And by the time you get to the 100th overall and beyond that, you're just going to draft the best player available kind of thing. You're not necessarily going to be drafting for need at that stage of the draft, because guys who get drafted, 5th round on, some of them will make the NHL and have impacts on teams. You can have that happen, but it's more often than not that unless you're drafted in the top, I'm going to say 3 rounds, that you're going to have an impact on your team in the immediate future. Guys who you take in the later rounds, like I said, can crack an NHL roster. They're just probably going to take a little more development and take a little more time before they have an impact on the NHL team. And those are guys that are thrown in with trades, kind of thing as well. When your team's looking to make a big trade, and we'll give you this guy we drafted in the 6th round a couple years ago. Okay, sure, and some other team will take him. But they can't make an impact on the team. I don't want to say that a 6th round pick is a washout. You just take him because you have the pick and whatever. We'll just take this guy. Obviously, scouts do their job because you can find talent in those late rounds, and that's the important job of your scouting, is to know that we got 3 picks in the 6th round. We got to find guys who aren't going to make an impact today, but in 3-4 years they can. And I think that's what these guys are going to be able to do for this team. If they can develop and if they can make an impact on the team, then they'll make an impact on the team and be on the roster. It's just a matter of them being able to do that. If you can't produce and you can't make an impact, then you're either going to be traded or you're going to be playing your entire career in the AHL. And some guys, they're fine with that. I mean, obviously, every player who gets drafted wants to make it to the NHL, but some guys just can't get over that hump, and they play on the AHL team until they're in their 30s, and that's fine. At least they're playing professional hockey and something that they love. So that's a bonus and an upside for them for sure. Looking at their team, I'll talk about their young guys first. When you look at the forwards, 30th overall pick back in 2012, Pearson had 12 goals and 4 assists in the 42 games he played in last year. Shore had a goal and 6 assists in the 34 games he played, and then Ondroff had 2 goals and an assist in the 18 games he played. Clifford had 6 goals and 9 assists. These are all guys that have been born in 91 or later. This last guy I'm going to mention, Toffoli, I think is the future of this team. Born in 92, 23 goals, 26 assists last year, so 49 points overall. I think this guy's going to blossom and keep growing for this team and become a 30-goal scorer on a regular basis going forward for this King team. Other guys you're going to want to keep an eye on, obviously, the veterans. Carter and Gaborik last year had 28 goals and 27 goals respectively with 34 assists and 20 assists. Carter was a beast for this team. Kopitar, 16 goals with 48 assists. They did bring in Lucic last year at 18 goals and 26 assists. So all those guys, fantastic numbers. Brown had 11 goals and 16 assists. You got a lot of guys in this team that are going to produce and have an impact. King, 13 goals, 13 assists. Again, the list goes on. But those are obviously the veterans on the team that are expected and should be being 20-plus goal scorers, 30-plus goal scorers for your team. And Toffoli's the future of this team going forward for sure. Looking at the defense to round things off, before I get to Quick, I'll finish off with Quick. But looking at the defense, like I said, outside of Green, very young defense. Green was born in 83, but outside of him, Martinez in 87, and then everybody else is 89 or later. Green had 3 goals, 6 assists. Martinez had 6 goals and 16 assists in the 56 games he played in. McBain had 3 goals and 6 assists. He only played in 26 games, so see what he can do with a full season. Doughty, obviously, second overall pick in 08, is the heart and soul, I think, of this team. He had 7 goals and 39 assists, which is fantastic. McNabb had a couple goals and 22 assists, and then Voynov only played in 6 games, but I do think he's, again, another young guy that this defense is going to look at going forward. But obviously the guy I want to talk about is Muzzin, Jake Muzzin, from my hometown. A fantastic defenseman, 10 goals and 31 assists. So he had almost identical numbers to Drew Doughty. I don't think he is going to be the Drew Doughty of this team, But when you look at that 1-2 punch with Drew Doughty and now Jake Muzzin, that's a solid 1-2 punch to have on the defense. You have two guys there that can easily be a combination 20-goal, 60-assist defense combination, which is nice to have on the offensive side of the puck. But very good young team with Toffoli on the forwards, those guys on defense. You got those good veterans as well. But the guy between the pipes is going to be what takes this team to the playoffs. Last year they had 95 points. They were just two points out of the playoff, 40-27-15 record. So they can't get to the playoffs, and Quick's going to be the guy that can get them there for sure. Last year, 36-22-13 with a 2.24 GAA and 918 save percentage, 85 points. Fantastic. Quick's a great goalie. Definitely top 5 in the league, maybe even top 3 for sure. And I think he's a fantastic goalie, great guy to have going forward. So keep an eye on this Kings team. I think they're going to make the playoffs this year. They just missed it by a game last year when you break it all down. So good luck to them going forward in this upcoming season. Thank you again all for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at GHAM614. I'll be continuing LA Week tomorrow with my look at the Dodgers of the MLB. All-Star Games on tonight for that, so hopefully you all enjoyed that, as well as the Home Run Derby yesterday. Again, thanks for all the support. I do appreciate it, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.